Mini episode 417 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Royalty Tours USA, your ultimate resource to traveling in style to attend sporting events. Follow them on the web at royaltytours.blogspot.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the FDH Lounge. Rick Morris and Kyle Ross, your dignitaries, and it is always a special treat when we get to spend some time on air here with Kyle Ross when it's not football season. And not that that's the only time we get a chance to talk to you, Kyle, but that is when we do it the most often. So it's very nice in the off season here to be able to get to some other things here, some potpourri ideas that were on your head. I understand it today. You more or less produced this whole thing here, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you got in mind.
I just like to hear myself talk, quite frankly, 12 months a year.
Yeah.
So I called you up. I said, hey, Ricky, we need to record more. I need to hear my good opinions more.
Yeah. Well, and I understand, and this is one of these clip and
Did I really just say that?
Yeah.
That was terrible. I sound like a huge tool.
Well, I'm going to take
even
that
worse than normal.
I'm going to take that a step further. A real clip and save moment here for all the listeners of the FDH Lounge. Kyle Ross going to have a project coming soon, and I will be happy to return the favor with you and be able to participate on some things with you. I guess the listeners should stay tuned for further details about that.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to get into the technological age. You know? I got a microphone sitting at home. Who knows where that's going to go? It might just be sitting there 6 months from now collecting dust. But I have a microphone. Who knows? Like I said, I like to hear myself talk. But the show in my head always winds up better than the show that everyone else gets to listen to.
The thing of it is, though, is that, like, I know, and I see traces of this on social media. For anybody that has followed you, I mean, going all the way back to your SNS days in the middle of last decade, there are people out there, and I don't necessarily fault them, who would listen to you, sitting in a closet recording your thoughts on different subjects because they find Kyle Ross so damn entertaining.
God bless them, I suppose. God bless them. God bless them. Thank you for the kind words.
Yes.
You were beaming as we started this podcast.
Yes,
by the way, you had like this grin on your face. I was like, where are you going with this?
Yeah, no, I'm just, it's great to be able to do this and blow it out with you. You said you wanted to hit some potpourri stuff. Yeah, I'm always glad to get the mics going for that.
Yeah, you know, I came out, to be honest with you, I think this is the beauty of of the FDH Lounge. I came over for another reason. I said, what the hell? Let's turn the mics on and talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some stuff. Let's see where this goes.
That's the essence of this show, is conversation.
This is a free-flowing discussion.
Yes, very free-flowing.
Where we could touch on mature subjects. Yeah. Does somebody have, that's a great idea. Does somebody else do that? We should use that as a tagline. It sounds really effective.
Yeah.
Oh, or is that trademarked?
Well, I got advice from my brother a couple of years ago that I should pursue something against NPR's All Things Considered, because they're not the true All Things Considered. We are. Like, that might be a specious legal claim, but it would be very fun to pursue.
Good Lord.
We really are, Kyle, when you think about it. Does National Public Radio verge between the NFL Draft, Donald Sterling, WrestleMania, any of the things that we might be likely to hit today?
No, but I'm sure in their world that they hit on a variety of subjects, too. I'm not going to begrudge anyone. I've really become a real wuss in my old age. I don't begrudge anyone anymore.
Okay.
Except people that begrudge ESPN.
Well,
those are the only people I begrudge. I'll always stick up for the worldwide leader.
Yes. Well, we see that
so
on
one day
Facebook.
So one day they Google me and they're like, oh, look at this guy. So those nice things about us, even when he wasn't employed. I'll sell out to anybody.
We see that
I'm getting hitched now. I mean, are you kidding me?
Exactly. By the way, that was congratulations. That was announced on Facebook a while ago.
Yes.
I did see that announcement there.
Yes. So
it's
I left my balls at home for this podcast. I hate when people say things like that.
In this day and age, it's not official until it's announced on Facebook,
yes.
right?
Although it was funny, my buddy of mine posted something about, I don't know, one of the papers in Ohio, maybe it was the Dayton paper, had something about medical marijuana, the debate, and I guess the con argument, there was nothing on the page, like, we couldn't find anyone. But anyway, to make a long story short, they had this picture, the thumbnail picture to click to the article, and the chick that was smoking, she was quite smoking, quite frankly. And so I write on there, this is right after we announced, this was actually the night that we announced the engagement. Shows where my head's at. I'm like, all right, this is done now. I'm going to go back to wasting time. And my buddy posts this thing. I was like, man, that stoner chick, I'm like, that stoner's really hot. And he's like, hey, you're engaged now. You can't say something like,
Are you getting that from people?
No,
really?
no.
Okay.
Well, no, he was being facetious.
Okay, good,
and he said something that's like, I forgot what he said. I should look it up. But he made some comment to like, your balls are owned or something like that now. And I was like, no, I was talking about the guy on the right. I thought that was humorous. No one else can. People are like, where are they going with that?
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of a hack take about people that are engaged or married or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true in a lot of instances.
I told my woman to stay home on Saturday night.
Yeah.
She kind of did. But
That's kind of a hack take, but people love to drop that on you. But, yeah, you've had that going on here. But, again, you've also been intrigued by things in the news. Found time to troll FDH senior editor Jason Jones on Facebook extensively about ESPN when Jason goes to complain about them.
I think it's funny because I have not seen Jason in the flesh.
He moved in late 07.
Yeah, so I had not seen him since earlier in that year. So it's been 7 years probably since I've seen Jason in the flesh. And I'm not sure the last time we actually had a conversation on the airways. It may have been around the same time, to be honest with you. I don't know if we have. I forget a lot of things. You would know this. I'm kind of it sounded like a statement, but it was more of a question.
I
don't think we've ever done anything together with you, Jason and I.
I've been talking about it for the longest time because I like to pair up interesting things here, but I don't think we've gotten around to it. I paired him up with Nate Noy to debate Jeremy Lin at the time when that was running really hot, and that was really incredible. Well, part of it is...
I've heard that. I remember.
Yeah, because Jason is like your ultimate scout guy. What I see with my eyes, breakdown of it, this is what I see. And then Nate was just doing nothing but spewing stats because Nate is legitimately the most brilliant guy I know. And, again, was just coming at it from all of that, and he was just completely dismissing all of Jason's stuff and predicting he would be nothing more than a journeyman. And Nate, I was kind of on Jason's side, but Nate's probably had somewhat the better of it in terms of the argument or where that ended up.
It's funny, and this makes for boring radio and boring podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I have just taken Jeremy Lin's a perfect example of this.
Mm-hmm.
I have taken the stance that both sides of an argument are usually wrong in a situation like that. Jeremy Lin is probably a starter in this league.
Mm-hmm.
He starts for Houston, who's a good team.
Yeah,
but he's not ever going to be the best player on the team. He's a horrible defender.
I remember Nate comparing him to J.J. Barea at the time, and that's where Jason and I were like, "Whoa, that's a little harsh."
That's a little harsh.
Yeah,
that's better than J.J. Barea,
right? But having said that, the whole thing of
but he's
6
not Mark
turnovers
Price.
per game. No, he's not Mark Price. But the turnovers that were really marking that first breakthrough period of his, Jason and I predicted those were going to calm down substantially, and they did. I mean, he's still one of the worst players in the league with turnovers, but not like historically worse.
Sure, and he's really bad. Well, those were some bad Knicks teams, but anyway.
Yeah,
but that's my point in all this was I like to troll Jason Jones. That's where to bring this thing full circle. One of my favorite people to troll. Yes,
and he responds to it. He definitely does because
it's
again,
really great. But that's what's interesting. I haven't had a real conversation with him in 7 years. I just like there's no one I enjoyed trolling more than this guy I worked with 7 years ago.
Yeah. I mean,
I thank you for continuing to bridge the gap between Jason and I. I look forward. I would love.
We got to do a debate segment with Jason, you and him.
Well, I think the NFL draft would be good.
Okay.
And I'm going to share. I think that's where we should start today.
All right.
I want to talk about the NFL draft because Lord knows everyone else loves to talk about the NFL draft. So I might share some thoughts. Now, it's my understanding that you've shared your thoughts previously. I was not akin to that. Where do we want to start with the NFL draft? Because we've obviously already broken down all of the divisions.
I mean, it's one of these things of where, and not everything has to go into box A or box B, but Jason and I did a pretty substantial kind of a breakdown on it. I wouldn't mind going in a more entertaining direction with you. We could do substance if you want, whatever you want to do, really.
It's funny with the NFL draft. We were talking about this off air. Before this year, I thought it was one of the more overrated events on the sports calendar.
This year changed your mind?
I don't know why. I think I've just gotten it. I know you'll laugh at this and you'll say, oh, of course you do, given who you support. I've just gotten more and more into the NFL, I think, and I find myself, it's funny that you see this a lot with baseball guy or hockey guy. Oh, wait, I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
But
I'm all of those things.
That, the NFL, it's just, why does that keep dominating the conversation? It's April. The season's 6 months away. Why are we talking about that?
Right.
To me, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I'm in the gambling world and the NFL is king. But I find myself, even during this offseason, constantly looking for information. I followed free agency harder this year.
Okay.
Maybe it's because we do the weekly show, and I just want more ammunition to sound smart. I don't know what it is. But anyway, the reason I always thought it was overrated is you just don't know. You're spending all this time debating about something, about this pick, and you don't know.
Right.
Until, to be honest with you, the whole concept of grading a draft after the fact I've always thought is silly because all you're doing is basically comparing.
It takes 3 years. Are you going to give that take?
I don't know about 3, but I think it takes some time. I'd like to see the person. I mean, because when people grade a draft right after the fact, here's what they're basically saying. Did they agree with me?
Not necessarily. Here's the thing.
I think mock drafts, and Jason, I wish he was here because his head would explode. I don't think I like mock drafts are useful, but I don't like doing them personally.
Okay.
Because
Jason did a 3-round mock draft one for our guide, Pro Football Draftology 2014. I did a 1-round one.
Because what happens is, it's like anything else, is you start to believe, if a team doesn't do what you think, they're stupid. To me, I look at it like, okay, here's the different options they can go. Because there's some different things we can get in with the teams. Like the Cleveland, your Cleveland Browns, for instance. Here's the thing. Here's the way I look at it. I don't want to mock a player to them. Here's their realistic situation. Maybe you guys disagree, but from what I've heard, there are 4 players that are rated considerably higher than the rest of the lot in this draft.
Okay.
Clowney,
Yeah.
Mack,
Yeah.
Watkins,
Yeah.
and Greg Robinson out of Auburn.
I think Jake Matthews is right there with him.
Okay. Well,
I said on the show with Jason, to me, the biggest mano-y-mano debate at any position, kind of fitting because it would be a sumo kind of a battle, is those 2 guys for the top left tackle. I don't think there's a single other positional battle that's as intriguing.
All right, let's just, for argument's sake here, say that Robinson is, because I've just read that.
Let's say that.
So that people consider those to be the 4 top prospects.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the Browns are picking 4, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just wasting on this is who the Browns should pick, because I've never seen a year at the top where the teams are more of a wild card. Houston, at St. Louis, to me, what they do at 2 is going to determine like the next 8 picks.
Or if they trade out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They could trade. Here's what I know about the Cleveland Browns first. This is why I don't like of those 4 guys, the only guy 100% sure, and you shouldn't say 100, but almost 100% sure that won't be there is Clowney. Because if Clowney by some way fell to number 3, David Caldwell would trample Roger Goodell to draft him for Jackson.
Right.
So he's gone. So that leaves 3 guys that they can choose from, or a quarterback. Any of those, so 2 of the 3 prospects will be off the board likely.
Right.
So it's going to be whichever one of those 4 prospects is left versus a quarterback. That's the debate.
Right. And as far as it goes with Mack, though, and I've said this previously, my problem with that is you got Sheard on the one side. On the other side, you have both Kruger, who disappointed last year, and Mingo, your first-round pick of a year ago. How many outside linebackers are they going to collect while they still have big needs elsewhere?
I
think it would be stupid.
Here's what's interesting.
Now, Jason thinks you could be Von Miller, which would make me change my mind.
Well, here's what's interesting with a bad team like the Browns, and maybe they're on the short list of teams like this, but the problem that most NFL fan bases have, I think, the way they look at their team, I moved my foot down. That was rude. My foot on the table. I had my foot on your kitchen table for the last 10 minutes. That was very rude. I apologize.
Dude, I own Lysol. It's no big deal.
Okay, I gotcha. I actually showered right before I came, by the way. Anyway, most NFL fan bases always think, what do they always think? Oh, we're just a quarterback away.
Right.
The Browns have a lot of holes.
Right.
So it's so interesting to me with the draft, the whole best player available versus specific need argument.
Right.
And if Mack was available at 4, I can tell you he's the best player available. But he does not fit a specific need.
Right.
I also don't think he will be on the board at 4.
Probably not.
I think that the rumors are that St. Louis really likes him, even though he wouldn't fit a specific need for them.
No, not really.
And if he fell to 3, Jacksonville would take him. So I don't think he'll be on the board either. So I think you're looking at Sammy Watkins, which would fill a need. Josh Gordon is fantastic. The bottom line is, I've got no one else. Jordan Cameron's great at tight end, but you need another. Here's a perfect example of what I was going with polls. The Browns, I'm always like, the Browns don't have enough good players. That's why they're never good. People say, we got Joe Hayden. Well, yeah, but not a bum starting opposite him that you just say, throw it at him every time. People say, oh, we've got Joe Thomas. Well, he's 1/5 of a starting unit, and all I read on this Facebook is Mitchell Schwartz stinks. So every unit can really only be as strong as its weakest player.
But they have only about 6 or 7 real glaring type holes. The rest of them are either filled with adequate players or, as you pointed out, some of the impact players.
True.
Focus on the 6 or 7. That's what I'm saying.
The key is
you align the needs with what's there.
This is a baseball term. You're a baseball guy, so you
Yeah.
like it. War. What is it good for?
Yeah.
You need at least just that average talent. It's when the difference between a team like the Browns and a team like the Seahawks is the Browns have guys starting that no one else would want. The Seahawks, they're players that are maybe like their second best player at each position. Other teams are willing to pay to have them be the best on their team. That's the case. It's the replacement level talent that you have to get. And the Browns, you could argue. I know they addressed the second receiver spot a little bit through free agency.
Right.
They may not go there. I don't know. Who's your pick for the Browns?
My pick, if he's there, I guess, would be Sammy Watkins. By the way, with what you said about war, and I'll come back to the Browns here in a second, that phrase about war, what is it good for? The only phrase that I've ever heard from both supporters of George McGovern and supporters of Miguel Cabrera in the whole MVP race against Mike Trout. Yeah, we're going with the same thing there. In the case of the Browns, you know,
That was very good.
Thank you. I'd also be okay with Blake Bortles. I think it'd be a reach for any of the other quarterbacks. I don't like Manziel. He's too scary to me because, again, any guy with question marks that comes to the Browns, it will always be worst-case scenario. In a sliding doors universe, had Chip Kelly come to the Browns a year ago, he'd have been 4-12 and probably fired by now. You cannot, if you're the Browns and you have the history of quicksand, take a risk on guys like that. A guy who I like but who would be now ludicrous to take at 4, I've posed this question to a lot of my fellow Browns fan friends of mine. This whole notion of when did we get to be too good for Teddy Bridgewater? I remember the days of September and October when we despaired of being able to get him because we won 3 games early in the season. And now he's going to be there at 4 and maybe at 26 and it's like, oh, I don't know, man. He had a bad pro day. He threw a couple of ducks on pro day. This is silly season, and this is the problem with the NFL draft, Kyle, is this over-analysis crap, and what you did on the field is less important than what you do in a ballroom.
Signal in the noise. I talked about it off air. The NFL draft is the best example in sports. It's like because we talk about it for so long, as soon as the Super Bowl ends, NFL fans immediately go draft. This year there's 2 extra weeks, which seems too long.
Yeah.
By the way, the reason is that there was some event already booked at Radio City Music Hall for when they wanted to do it. And that event got canceled, that's my understanding. My man, the dictator Roger Goodell, rarely gets one up like that.
You know what, though? But from what I've read, this is an act of hegemony by the NFL to go into May and to take over. Because now, like, the fallout from that mini camp going into June, that you won't have a dead period anymore. Which, again, my grievance in the last couple of years has been that the NFL has been too much of a 12-month thing. Well, how can we miss you if you won't go away? This is Goodell's plan.
The thing is,
allegedly.
I don't think people want the NFL to go away. And by God, how do we want Ed Werder to go away?
I want it to go away. I mean, football is probably my favorite sport out of them, but I can't enjoy it as much if it never leaves. You want to look forward to opening day. You want to look forward to the season instead of,
I think people want to be informed,
football
though.
Today. If you never get away from it, though, that's my philosophy.
I would agree with it.
And
I would agree with
sports.
it more if people complained about football coverage more, but all they want is more football.
Well, and the funny thing is, too, I don't expect other people to follow in my footsteps on this, but I've been able to replicate the process in the off-season here by getting a season ticket package online for the Australian Football League here, following my Western Bulldogs week after week. I look forward to that as I do Browns games. I watch the game on a tape delay every week after it's done, and it's the same experience.
I think most sports are trying to become 12-month-a-year entities.
Yeah.
The old, remember the WWE, there is no off-season in the WWE. Remember those horrible commercials?
Yes.
I think sports are trying to do that where there's really, it's in their best interest for people not to mentally check out.
Right.
You
don't
is.
Want that.
And that's where ESPN comes in handy.
Well, yeah, ESPN and the NFL, they have a lot in common as far as their whole theory of world domination and how they want to pursue it. And I guess that's the problem on the consumer level that myself and a lot of other people have with both institutions separately than how you view them.
I don't think that many people have a problem with it.
Yeah. Have you been on Facebook recently?
Yeah, let me tell you something. If you want a very narrow-minded view of the world, then by all means, live your life through Facebook comments. That is, like, yes, there is, I am not denying that there is a segment of the population who gets burnt, who not only gets burnt out by ESPN and the NFL, but is right for doing so.
Yeah.
But it's a minority opinion, and it's...
I'm not saying it's a majority opinion, but it's... by the way, just in mentioning Facebook, they're proving once again, nobody hits the no-look passes on the break like I do. Anytime I get a chance to get you wound up about Facebook GMs or Facebook program directors,
that's a perfect day.
Yeah.
We're venturing off the draft. We'll get back to the draft in a second. You know, Jason, for instance. Here's a perfect example. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
Maybe he'll call in.
Unlikely, but you never know.
You never know. Stay tuned, folks. Jason Jones may call in.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
So this he got all up in arms about Jack Ramsey. When we're in the lineup, he was discussed about SportsCenter.
He's one of their own guys, Kyle. How do you disrespect one of your own?
He was not disrespected. The fact that he was talked about 20 minutes later than you would have done it is the most inconsequential thing I've ever heard somebody bandy about in my entire existence on this earth.
That it should go after all of the inane chatter that they were doing about Donald Sterling? Okay.
Yes. I'm not saying that morally I agree with that. I'm saying that if I am a producer of SportsCenter in 2014, that would not even be debated. If somebody came to me and said, "Oh, we need to lead with Jack Ramsey," what?
I'm not saying lead with him, but Jason said it was 37 minutes in.
First of all, my problem is when people try to paint ESPN with one broad stroke. You know what ESPN is? You'll love this.
What?
Too big to fail at this point. ESPN, it's achieved a
they're-
level.
They're an epitome of crony capitalism, so I see your point.
Yes, in that it's just so big and so. There's ESPN. It's not like it's funny when you say ESPN. You can mean so many things. They have so many different platforms now. They have a website, which is huge. They have things like Grantland that they own.
Yeah.
It's so deep now. It's not when you say ESPN. It's not like. I think SportsCenter is the worst part of ESPN. But SportsCenter is not made for sports fans like you, me, or Jason.
Don't sleep on their debate shows either.
It is a debate show, but all they do is bring it on. First of all, those debate shows work for a reason.
Embrace debate.
Some of them are obviously more horrible than others. Numbers never lie. It was originally not conceived as a debate show, and they're like, screw it.
Yeah.
We'll just rather have people debating the same issues. But the point is, ESPN is not made for someone to watch. The way it's construed, I've always said this, and this is the biggest offense of me. If anyone should hate ESPN, it should be me, because I leave it on during the day, most of the day. And eventually I'll be like, yeah, I'm sick of this. I don't get mad about it. I'm like, I've probably been watching TV too long.
You are, from your defense of ESPN, it is curious for anyone who knows you well. You are most definitely a selective believer in free market economics. No question about it.
You know what I am? I am a huge Republican when it comes to my sports fandom.
You kind of are, yeah.
Like I am, and you're a huge liberal.
I don't know that it makes me
Yes,
liberal.
you are. Oh, the NHL would be so much more popular if we gave them a chance. No, it wouldn't.
I believe in equal opportunity in society.
Here we go.
A hand up, not a hand
Here,
out.
let me go a little Reagan on the NHL, okay? Too many communists, too many consonants, baby.
A hand up, not a hand out. That's how I believe.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Oh.
But no, that's my here's the thing. Do you know what I compare ESPN a lot to? And this will be great because I'm on. What a great free-flowing discussion we've had here.
Our ESPN and official and NFL draft stuff is officially totally commingled now.
Yes. Eventually, I will say things about the NFL draft.
Okay.
But do you know what I compare ESPN to a lot?
What?
You'll hate this. WWE, the other big company in Connecticut.
Okay. In what way?
I think it's pertinent that I make this.
I'm intrigued by your theory and wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
As I break your lamp. Don't mind me. I'm just going to put my foot on your table and just put my elbow through your lamp today. I was on a show once upon a time, as I regain my thoughts there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, delay. That I was heavily critical of the WWE and the way they did things in much the same way that maybe Jason's critical of ESPN.
Okay.
But I think the difference is, although you may not like it, what ESPN's doing is working. They are, I've said this, I would have a bigger problem with it if they weren't umpteen times more successful right now with their format than they were 20 years ago.
Let me poke a hole in your analogy. When you were on said show, talking pro wrestling, end of 05 to beginning of 07, they were not successful.
I know.
You were poking fun at them during a period of time in which they were pretty bad, especially relative to today.
Exactly, but that's my point.
But you were right to do so.
Yes.
And so people are right to criticize ESPN, I say.
But I think what they're doing is working. You just don't like it. Like, it's one thing,
it's making them money. You're right.
And which is their bottom line. ESPN, to me, Jason, who's a really sharp guy. I know Jason, and I know you even better, and you're a really sharp guy. The joke's on you guys, not the rest of us. Who to me, there's this thing, just brainless people just listening to whatever ESPN tells them. It's a chicken and the egg argument. People are actually maybe a little smarter than you think. I think the way they want to consume sports is just not the way you want to. That ESPN, first of all, does. And I know you don't like it, which shocks me because you're a big wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. To me, I love hype. Like, for instance, today, when they showed that Donald Sterling thing, the Adam Silver thing.
Right.
I could not stop laughing and was having the time of my life. That would be quite a stretch. But I was enjoying myself when they kept it, because it was so ridiculous. They kept showing the closed door that Adam Silver was going to walk through. They're like, we're still waiting. I was at the gym, so I'm just watching this silent TV, and they keep focusing on this door. They're like, any minute now. And I wanted to yell out, but people would have thought I was crazy. I had to be ejected from the gym. No one does sports better than ESPN. I kept waiting for David's, the Stone Cold Steve Austin glass to shatter, David Stern to walk through, and you're, by God, he's still here. By God, the sheriff is back in town.
I guess the difference is I only like pro wrestling in my pro wrestling. I don't like it pervading every corner of my life, Kyle.
I wish. And do you know who's the worst at doing pro wrestling?
Is
pro wrestling.
Times, yeah.
ESPN, that was my original point. ESPN is now better at doing pro wrestling than WWE is at hype. UFC got popular because they borrowed the old 80s model and got better at it.
The one, at least partial quibble I would have where you said the joke's on me and Jason. Me and Jason both know. We acknowledge they're making buckets and buckets and buckets of money doing what they're doing. We do not, that's not lost on us.
Here's the thing. It's an inarguable point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something factual.
If they want to go lowest common denominator, if they want to pander to the knuckle draggers, they're making a lot of money in doing that. And again,
I don't think that's what it is, though.
But I do, and I think it's things like running a protection racket on the NHL. Oh, you don't want to be on our channel? Gee, sure would be a shame if anything happened to your league. Put like Stanley Cup highlights 50 minutes into an episode of SportsCenter.
But again, I think it's chicken and the egg.
They're conditioning the people, the sheeple who watch their show think things are only as important as ESPN makes them to be. I'll believe that going to my grave.
There's some truth to that, but again, chicken and the egg.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that the NHL now do they what their job is to do? And see, it is like pro wrestling. Their job is to interpret what their audience wants. ESPN, and if their audience wants something, give them more of that. If their audience doesn't want something, give them less of that.
I guess I'm old school, having gone to
SportsCenter should never, ever be. Say it's our, and again, I know there's commercials, but just for argument's sake, it should never be 15 minutes NFL, 15 minutes MLB, 15 minutes NBA, 15 minutes NHL. No way, no how.
Well,
it should never be that.
As a graduate of the fine script school at the Harvard on the Hocking here, an esteemed journalistic institution, I look at it like, what are the most important stories journalistically of the day?
It's not journalism, though. SportsCenter, here, this is why the joke's on you. ESPN is no longer in the business of getting it right. That's why people are like, oh, this guy said this. ESPN, and I know you, like, it's become the scourge of the internet, the whole embrace debate mindset. Yeah. Their job is to promote and, I had this other word, lesson. They are a promoting vehicle.
Well, if they admitted that they were just nothing more than sports entertainment gaga like the WWE.
I think they are. They don't pretend to be anything else.
They don't disavow doing journalism.
Well,
they don't
nor
say
should
journalism,
they.
That's not us. Well,
nor should they.
If they were honest,
they have
would.
some, but it's not the driving force.
I mean, there's whenever Bob Lee's show is on, you can get some journalism, and you get some
and
journalism
that's fine.
here and there. But it's the exception to the rule. It's the culture of Bayless that runs that place.
Yes,
it really
because
is.
It works. Because here's what happened: the idea that ESPN just woke up one day and are like, you know what, we're just going to spring all these debate shows on people.
It's
not
like
that.
slow slide to the lowest common denominator, basically.
Well, look, some of the shows do go lowest common denominator, but it's just because it gets repetitive. And
which of the debate shows aren't lowest common denominator? Which of them aren't?
It started out with the success of BTI, which is now you have two guys kind of phoning it in. At the time, though, I loved it. I remember when that came out. I couldn't wait when I saw. I was like, "This looks really interesting," because what are we doing? We're just debate thing. People like debate shows.
Yeah,
people would rather just
except we're not contrived. We're not sitting here with focus group documents of like, say this because this will get housewives in Middle America to buy soap.
You're right.
You and I are real people.
The problem is that it doesn't. Originally, I don't think the show was that contrived.
No,
it clearly kind of is now when they're like, okay, they play these game shows and and it becomes obvious because every other debate show has the same 10 topics they run down. But again, what works for ESPN, and it works really in any walk of life, is you have to it's about stars, really. And people would much rather hear about Johnny Manziel for a 10th time than a breakdown of Brewers Padres.
So the sheeple demand their simple narratives, is what you're saying.
I don't think it's necessarily that simple. I think, first of all, it's a 24-hour news cycle. First of all, ESPN also heavily influenced by Fox News.
Interesting. In what way?
Oh, it's all over. Like the way, I remember when I first, and look, it's no secret how I feel at Fox News. I mean, it is just some of the most atrocious opinions you will ever hear on anything in the history of speaking.
I assume you're talking about the small block of opinion shows that are on in the evening, as opposed to the straight news shows through the day.
Generally, that's what you would. Well, see, See, what I'm doing is what you're guilty of doing. Is you're associating the loudest and proudest with the network. But here's my point. This is where I'm going to do a wild U-turn and catch you off guard.
Okay.
It is very, as much as I detest Fox and hate Bill O'Reilly, I hate Sean Hannity, hate Carl Rove.
You should love Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity probably makes more people liberals than anybody else I've seen on TV.
Well, here's the thing. It is very easy for me to understand why Fox News is as successful as it is. It's a very well-run cable news station. I am when I see the ratings, how much it kicks CNN's and MSNBC's ass, not surprising at all. They do a much better job of hammering a message out to the people who are likely to watch them.
They know where the heartland is, Kyle Ross.
Yes. So, but I don't begrudge them.
I was actually trolling you there.
Yes, yeah. I don't begrudge them for that. What they do. I mean, I will never watch it, but I don't begrudge them for what they do. And ESPN, I remember, I can't remember what show it was on Fox, but when I first saw it, I was like, really? You're doing that? When they, on the bottom, it'll scroll, they'll quote the talk show host that just said something. Like, O'Reilly, Obama stinks. But now,
I'm pretty sure you're paraphrasing.
Yes, but they do that on First Take,
right?
Skip, Nick's in trouble. They did the producers of ESPN clearly watched Fox and stole a lot of elements, and it's a model that works. The issue is the 24-hour news cycle. It doesn't people just want quick now. What's happening? Boom, bam, this, that. That's what they want. They don't really want. I mean, there is a place certainly for investigative journalism, but look at the news networks. If you follow this, where do they cut the money? In investigative journalism.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper and gets better ratings when you just have some yahoo, whether it's sports or politics. Just this is what I think, and just giving takes.
So the ultimate crossover between Fox News and ESPN would then be if Skip Bayless was ever doing a segment on Benghazi. Is that what you're telling me, Kyle?
Yes. I mean, really, it's. Skip Bayless is Bill O'Reilly.
I'll
they just talk about different things.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to see why both are successful.
Well, Skip Bayless is not looking out for the folks.
Stop it.
Stop it. You say Jason's pretty fun to troll, but
yes,
you're
I'm
not
pretty
bad
good
yourself.
Too.
Yeah.
I'm not bad. But that's my point. My whole point is, anti-ESPN guy thinks he's so smart and so cool. He's like, ESPN talks so much about the Yankees. And you see this stuff on Deadspin. When they, I think the biggest waste of time that Deadspin does is when they show those Bristol metric things. I think if you handed that to a sports center, see, we told you talk about the Yankees so much. Be like, yeah, we do. So what?
So you would then agree with me that it's a waste of time similarly for Media Matters to spend all their time watching Fox News. Is that correct?
Yes, actually I do.
Oh, okay.
Although I will, here's one distinction I will draw between the two. The issues at hand that Fox News deals with are more important than Yankees Sox. Okay?
Yes, although you'll never get anybody on ESPN to admit that.
No, come on. I think ESPN realizes that Yankees Sox is more important than what's going on in or isn't as important what's going on in the Ukraine.
Sunday Night Baseball coverage?
It's a little, it gets a little much. No, but here's the thing. I think that when in the news you frame certain issues as important, for instance, the stupid birther thing with Obama, spending all this time on that and no time on Wall Street and the shenanigans that brought this country down over there, that's more damning than when you talk about Yankees, Red Sox more than Brewers, Padres. Okay, you're just talking about it's just a baseball game. That's why, I don't get mad about ESPN that much because they're talking about sports at the end of the day.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, if sports are supposed to be a quality escape for people in this country, then for ESPN to then be degrading the quality of sports coverage and everything like that with the lowest common denominator stuff.
I don't think.
Well, again, conditioning the sheeple to not think that hockey is important.
But
or we shouldn't want
the people already don't think that hockey's important. Yeah. I really
chicken and the egg, but I really think, again,
NBC's a big network, right?
Yeah.
It's usually the first network on most people's dials, right?
I think so.
The Stanley Cup Finals won't outrate tonight's Warriors-Clippers game.
Kind of a sad commentary on it.
I mean, you may not like it, and maybe look. I don't hate hockey by any means. If it was on, I'd watch it. If it's good, there's nothing I like more. I actually just said this to somebody the other night. Nothing is better than Game 7 overtime.
Oh yeah,
in the playoffs when it's just next goal, you move on or you go home. That is great, but.
It's kind of a selective take. It doesn't happen that often.
Exactly. But my thing is the NHL doesn't have enough of those moments. That's the problem. People like the highs of sports, and ESPN gives them the highs of sports.
Well, yeah, again,
Do you know who made the best point about
it's not for everybody.
Let's go back to the NFL.
Yeah.
You know who made the best? This is why the NFL is as big as it is. Chad Repack,
The Bob Sacramento of our show.
made what I believe is the greatest comment about the NFL, and also the most telling as to its popularity. We were sitting there. This was maybe 10 years ago. We were sitting on a Sunday watching all the games. He looks at me and goes, when are all these games going to be over so we can just sit and talk about, debate what happened? That lies the strength of the NFL. Because the problem is people like to talk about the games, but they don't really like to watch the games and break them down. That's why the NFL is more popular, because it's less game, more yapping. Whereas in the NBA, is much like it's my job to follow. Like, it's, I watch a lot of NBA, but even I,
It's usually background for me. I'm doing something else.
Well, no, it's like, it's tough to, right now, you're in the midst of the playoffs, 40 games and 40 nights or whatever. I mean, it's tough to get up, and by get up, I mean be excited, for 3 games every night and be able to break them down. Whereas the NFL, you had 1 game per team. It's easier to discuss. That's one part of the reason why I've joined the sheep, as you call them. It's just so disparaging, so rude to the folks.
I don't think your average person checking us out is exactly who I'm talking about.
No,
here.
they're not, but we're a small
taste.
minority.
I cater to snobs.
Yeah, we're a small minority is when it comes to sports fandom. Like I said, Sports Center's not for us.
No. It's definitely more for you than it is for me. But yeah,
I don't think it's for me. I'm just more tolerant of it. Like, I'm not surprised by what they do. Some people, there are these people, and a lot of it has to do with because they're from Cleveland and it is such a hard hit to the city. Some people, this ESPN, I can't believe they got in bed with the decision. That's just disgusting. They'd be stupid if they didn't get in bed with something like that.
That's one of those things. Again, on a business level, they profited from it incredibly. But it's just a thing of,
and it's very newsworthy. People
don't
care.
Look me in the eye and tell me that you're still journalism if you're going to do something.
But
like
it is
that.
a news story.
It's a complete sellout as far as conflict of interest. There were no hard questions that were asked. There was nothing that was put
part,
to
you're
them
right. You're
as
right.
Far as,
but
your job under the circumstances, journalistically, at the very least, is to talk about everything that went on in Cleveland and to say, you coerced these moves from this organization, holding it over their head for 7 years, and you left anyways.
I'm glad that you would have loved.
Say that.
I'm glad you would have loved a very Cleveland-centric perspective there for you.
It's a truth-centric perspective. I mean, it legitimately is what happened, and nobody on the national level ever raises that. And that's
he was crushed after it.
You can't tell the whole story.
He was crushed. I mean, he may not have been crushed in that 30 minutes, but he was certainly crushed immediately after.
Well, through no help, it was in spite of what they did. They were trying to put him over, and it just backfired spectacularly. It was through no fault of theirs.
I think people just cared about it was called the decision. People just wanted to see the decision presented in a way. It's all about presentation.
It is, but again, that is the biggest. I mean, I'm glad you raised that, because if I could identify a single defining anti-journalism moment in the last 25 years of ESPN, that would probably be it. The decision epitomizes everything I'm talking about here. The whole thing of showbiz over the purity of what you learn in J school, which is what I'm all about, Ross, quite frankly.
I just don't think that matters anymore, the purity.
Well, it doesn't.
And the thing, too, and here's the other thing, too, to wrap this up, it's so deep. Like, I love the website a lot. I use it. I go to it a lot. I have an insight. You can get phenomenal coverage with stuff, using stuff with analytics, game by game, scouting through ESPN and on their sub-sites with like Grantland. ESPN even, here's the thing with Too Big to Fail. People always, it's all showbiz. Well, they have Football Outsiders does as good a job as anyone walking the face of the earth. Even though a website can't really walk, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
At breaking the NFL down. Would you agree? I mean, that's something I think we'd agree on.
Yeah.
I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're a satellite site of ESPN now. ESPN just says, okay, well, we'll just go out and we'll get you.
Yeah. Well,
and that's the thing. So Football Outsiders is kind of, they bring that. The outlets are there. Like, I could understand wasting time bitching about Sports Center if that's all we had. But and I made the point to Jason with Jack Ramsey passing. If you need Sports Center, like somehow Sports Center having him in the opening 15 minutes of their show to legitimize his legacy, what? It's kind of disrespectful to Jack Ramsey.
What, by acknowledging how important he was to the world of basketball in an
being
accurate
on
sense?
20, they did. They just didn't. It was no
placement matters, Kyle. Placement matters.
I don't think it does. Is it going to? I mean, not to be insensitive, is it going to bring him back to life?
Probably not.
Okay,
but
does watching something like that 20 minutes later diminish what he did? diminish him as a person?
I think if it tells you he's much less important than all
no,
of the
it's
Donald
not.
Sterling
That is
chatter.
important. It's about the news cycle.
But
it's not
if
timely.
the people have to wait 37 minutes into a show to hear about him, then they wonder, well, how important could he be, quite frankly?
I think they did a wonderful job of putting the man over.
If anybody was still around for that point in time, if he hadn't moved on and said, okay, I guess Donald Sterling's all that happened today.
People
click,
don't
click,
think
click.
it's the most, again, they talk about the big issue of the day, so everyone can hear about it once. They're like, look, everybody talk about this because when people don't, again, this goes back to me. I should hate ESPN more than anybody because I'll actually watch some of these shows consecutively. You know, I will, in a day.
You have a sterner constitution
In
than
a
I.
day, I will digest Colin Cowherd's take on Donald Sterling. I will digest Scott Van Pelt's take on Donald Sterling. Screamin' A. Smith's take on Donald Sterling. I'll hear them all. And I'm like, all right, well, this is this guy's opinion and whatever. And eventually I go up and I do something.
Yeah.
But most people only hear one of those takes, not all three. That's why they have, like, look, we need someone on talking about Donald Sterling right now because people don't watch us 24 hours through. They just come in and they, you know, most people just watch one of those debate shows a day, not all of them. That's what it's for.
So that at any point in time during the day, somebody can flick on their channel and hear an insipid debate, pre-cooked talking points
I don't think
on
they're
any major subject.
Yes, that's what they
Okay,
do.
all
I don't
right.
think they're always pre-cooked.
All
I
right,
think it's
thank you
unfair
for-
to say they're always
Thank you for
pre-cooked.
agreeing with my premise.
I don't
But,
think. I think it's unfair to say they're all pre-cooked. I mean, I think I think there was certainly some authentic takes on the Donald Sterling issue. Again, I think that's a sort of a
Might have
unique
been.
situation.
And we were going to hit a little bit on that as well, too. There was something else that I had heard as far as on the Donald Sterling tapes here that come out. I'd heard a report that one of the things he said was that he would like to, quote, straighten out Sage Steele's hair the fun way, quote. And now that would be, is that more of a racist or sexist thing if he said that?
I think it's both.
Is it both?
Yes,
Okay.
it's
All right.
both.
Okay.
It's
Just curious. Okay.
Look, here's the thing with
That's
Donald.
just a rumor that he
Yes.
said that.
It's funny because this ties into the whole the whole larger picture beyond ESPN of the 24-hour news cycle with Donald Sterling. People get, you know, and even you were kind of, I can't believe we're talking about this. It's so dumb. It's funny. I'm a totality of the situation guy, and had this been Donald Sterling's only transgression, I think that what wound up being the punishment may not have fit the crime. But
I agree. It's because of who he is.
yes,
Racist scumbag,
Yes.
slumlord.
yes,
That he's done this for 30 years.
This may actually. It's funny. Some people are like, I can't know what he said on that, but why are we making such a big deal about this?
Yeah.
And I will admit that on the scale of horrible things that Donald Sterling has done, this may struggle to crack the top 10, let alone the top 5.
True, but the other top 10 weren't getting acted upon.
Yes, but so some people are like, where was ESPN for this? Where's Shut up for a second.
Right.
There's two different points to be made. One, Donald Sterling just had to go because of who he was. The NBA is better for not having Donald Sterling in it.
Yes,
He had to go.
absolutely.
If this sort of sleazy, TMZ-induced girlfriend recording had to be the smoking gun, so be it.
Right.
Okay? Now, the other more investigative discussion we should have is, why was Donald Sterling still an owner of an NBA team in 2014?
Because David Stern is a coward and a bully in my estimation.
I don't know if that's fair.
And just didn't want to take him on. There were pretexts for
Now, he
going after
works
him
for
long
Donald
ago.
Sterling, keep in mind. He works for the owners, the commissioner.
Yeah. Well, Adam Silver works for them as well.
Well,
and,
I mean,
he
had
the stones
it.
to
There
do
was
it.
so much public. Thing is, it was the public pressure. It's very unique that, I don't know, maybe you tip your cap to TMZ in this situation and the power they have in our society. That, you know, these things were out there about the housing. I mean, to me, what's interesting about Donald Sterling is not only is he a racist and just a complete piece of crap human being.
Yeah.
He's an awful owner, and he's
Right.
a racist on top of it.
He is.
So, I mean, he just has no redeemable qualities
Although the
about
thing
being
in all
NBA.
of this, the firing of Elgin Baylor, getting lumped in with a lot of Elgin Baylor was an awful general manager who
was.
kept his job for way too long. So that getting folded in with these other
It
things
is now, but that doesn't
really
change
fit.
the fact that he
No.
may have been subjected to racism.
Yeah,
But again,
right.
What do I always say? Both sides of an argument are usually wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's a thing where I agree with you. If this were the only thing that he ever did, then I I would have at least a medium-sized problem with this because the first compare and contrast that comes into everybody's head is what happened with Marge Schott and what she said.
Yes, that did for me.
In an interview, knowing that it was going to be on TV versus being surreptitiously taped.
Which is illegal in California.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't have a problem with it because a bad guy is getting what's coming to him.
It's about the end, not the means in this
but
situation. No one was hurt. As long as anything short of Donald Sterling being beaten, like with a tape recorder for us, say racist things. Anything short of that, I don't care.
Yeah,
if this had to be the smoking gun, get him out.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a completely isolated incident, I think then I'd be banging the drum of, look, the guy was surreptitiously taped in his own home. Again, makes him a jerk, but yeah, it starts to. But again, reflecting poorly on the league. The only thing that surprised me at all about the severity of this was how quickly it came down, because Adam Silver had said over the weekend, we need to look into this, we need to investigate.
That's the public pressure. Well, what do you need to investigate? All you need to do
make
is
sure that the tape wasn't altered in any kind of a way.
Well, apparently they were happy with that. And here's
right.
Here's another thing, though. Here's what kind of kills that argument.
Right.
If that wasn't you, wouldn't you make a public statement? I could
right.
not believe what it said. Donald Sterling apparently was like, oh, that's me. Said that was him. They called him on it. They're like, is that you? And he was like, yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
That's I could be wrong. But
I heard was that his lawyer was trying to dissemble about, well, we're trying to figure out if those are his words as he said them.
That's a lawyer just saying, I have to say something. That's a lawyer basically trying to continue to be Donald Sterling's counsel for the next case.
Well, the thing of it is, too, part of Sterling being the gigantic a-hole that he is, and part of the reason, as I say, that I consider David Stern to be a coward and a bully, is knowing that Sterling has, shaken that gnarled old fist at him, at anybody that's come near him. Because there has been, under the surface, relative to what we're seeing now, a long-time movement of why don't we get rid of this guy. But anybody that thinks he's going quietly is insane. And I may be proven wrong by this in the days to come. Maybe I'll look stupid, but I got to believe that there's probably a lawsuit coming from him.
Oh, sure, and he's very litigious.
That. Yes.
That's why,
the thing.
He doesn't pay his former coaches.
Right.
He's a horrible human being. Let's just say it. He's horrible.
He is.
God, I don't, well, no, I'm not say that.
Well,
I was going to make old Yeller jokes.
I'm going to bring up something, too. I was talking to FDH Director of Nate Noy, our Director of Research, Nate Noy, off air today. He made an excellent point about this. And for anybody that's defending him or whatever, the thing that he said is, and I agree with him completely, unless you're another rich white man, he doesn't have respect for you. If you want to go to defend him as a fellow white guy who's just entitled to whatever, understand that Donald Sterling, unless you're a gazillionaire like him, looks at you as being a piece of trash as well. There's no racial solidarity from Donald Sterling as far as he's concerned.
It goes beyond the NBA.
He doesn't just hate black people. He does.
Yes.
He really does.
Yes.
But he also hates a lot of white people, too.
Most
of us.
It's the whole we're morphing into an oligarchy type thing. He is very emblematic of some larger societal problems we have in this country.
He loves people of his economic class, and that's it.
Not to defend
Stern. As long as they're white.
Not to defend Stern, but I will. They needed... It's so funny when people complain, oh, where was everyone before? This is, even I just said this probably would not be on the top 5 Donald Sterling transgressions list. But because it's public, it's tangible, and a public outcry, they finally had. You can't just say, because it is a slippery slope.
Right.
You can't just start getting rid of people because you don't like them.
Right.
Now, a lot of that stuff was public record with the housing.
It was.
And some of the comments. But they were parts of ongoing cases where he was not found guilty. He was settling out of court. And they may not have had the impetus to get rid of him.
But how did I know about it and nobody that's ever played for him ever knew about it?
Well, I think they did. I think they just liked the,
They've talked to a couple players and they're like, oh, I didn't know anything about this guy. So I've heard that.
Well, some of them were younger.
Okay. I guess
some
I'm not
people,
quite sure where that's an excuse. By my early 20s, I knew about who I was working for and what their deal was.
I don't know. Maybe some people just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's the one thing, too.
You're right. I would find it surprising. I knew about, it's funny, Bomani Jones, who gave this great rant to the whole situation.
I'm sure he did.
No, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Yeah, I don't know if it was what it was. It was not Spike Lee.
What was the over-under on hate Whitey rhetoric?
It wasn't like that at all.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like that. See, there you go, jumping. I thought it was fantastic, and you should anyway.
Okay. I've just seen him slur somebody very close to my heart on a previous occasion, okay.
So Now look what you did. You made me forget what I was going to say because I defended Bomani. Where was I saying before?
That's how effective my trolling is. You don't remember the Bomani Jones' point? Well, while you're thinking of it, let me bring this up to you because I brought up a point. I tweeted at Doc Rivers this past weekend on Twitter.
Oh, I thought, let me just shout this out.
Okay, go ahead.
It came to me.
All
Bomani
right.
Jones, because I knew about the Donald. It's not like it's not like just this week I learned that Donald Sterling was somewhat. I read about it at the time.
Yeah.
Bomani Jones had written something 9 years ago about Donald Sterling,
Right.
and I guess ESPN.com reposted it the last couple days.
Okay.
It got more views in the last couple days than it had in the previous 9 years.
I'm sure. Yeah, because it's a fresh topic. It's in the headlines.
But that's what I'm saying is people here was this piece that he did.
Right.
He wrote about it.
Right.
It's tangible for you, and people didn't care at the time.
They
People didn't
didn't.
raise a stink.
Right.
Some people did.
Right.
But not to the degree that this taped conversation raised the conversation.
Here's the thing, too.
Which is interesting.
And
But
I think there's a fair amount of hypocrisy from some people in this. And I had tweeted at Doc Rivers about this because I was a little bit disturbed by his hypocrisy. When I saw this past weekend that he was quoted as saying that he wasn't really surprised about this. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. And this is what I tweeted at him, basically. You must have a lot of self-respect. So you knowingly went to work for a
Bill
guy.
Simmons, you're tweeting disparaging things at
Yeah,
Doc Rivers?
I was very disturbed by that. What kind of person with any kind of self-respect knowingly goes to work for an old racist white guy that you know hates black people? If this wasn't a surprise to you, then why are you working for him, Kyle? That's what I want to know from Doc Rivers.
I know.
You don't get to play that card. You don't get to play the card of, oh, well, can't see I'm surprised.
I think it's fine. I think you could separate the two.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
I think it's unfair.
Would you go to work for any black guy that you knew hated white people? I wouldn't.
I might. I have no principles, though. Here's the thing. Doc Rivers is an NBA coach.
I just don't know where...
Doc Rivers is an NBA coach, right?
Yeah.
There's 30 jobs in the world.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good one as far as the
Yes.
talent on the court. It's one of the top 5 or 6.
Yes.
So...
I mean, if you don't... I cannot imagine that Doc Rivers' employment with the LA Clippers included many brunches with Donald Sterling. I mean, and here's the thing with Donald Sterling.
So as long
There's
as you don't-
hypocrisy. Donald Sterling's just as hypocritical. If he feels that way about the African-American community, why is he
That's
hiring
true.
them?
And that's true, too. There's a lot of hypocrisy. Why should he be in the business if he hates black people? Now, the answer in a weird, twisted, psychological way is, and I guess the tapes are revealing this, he still has the plantation mentality that he is dispensing the houses and cars and whatever to the folks who are working for him.
Which is so embarrassing.
It really is.
It's really embarrassing.
It
It's
is.
like, oh, look what I like. He's like, it's the old, oh, I take care of my kids argument.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're doing something that 29 other people would do.
Yes.
It's like, who else would do this? I don't know every other NBA general manager.
He feels that he owns them, and
Yeah.
that's where he's kind of getting off
Aren't I
on
so
it.
nice for paying Blake Griffin? No, that's market. You're giving the man market value.
Well, and not only that, yeah, it just, if you're an old racist white guy owning a team and you think you're getting over by paying 8 figures to your top players, you know, I don't understand that part. But again, I don't understand from Doc Rivers. I don't think anybody could possibly have any self-respect if they knowingly worked for somebody who hated them because of the color of their skin.
I think
in that situation, say, look, man, I didn't know about this stuff, whatever, even though it was out there. It's better to say I didn't know about this.
it may not have affected him. Doc Rivers, by all accounts, I don't know. I'm not Doc Rivers.
It doesn't affect your self-esteem to work for somebody that you know hates you because of the color of your skin? It doesn't make you feel like less of a man?
It might. It probably does. I mean, I can't. Here's the. I always say that marriage. I
Yeah.
can't. That's something that I can't put
And
myself in.
I understand
That.
it.
I can't.
You know, unlike me, how does he go to sleep at night on a bed of money? Okay, I get that, but I mean, you're selling your everything. You're selling your self-respect to knowingly work for a man like that.
He may
That's
be
not
able
a good
to
look.
separate.
To admit that you knew that's who the man was is not a good look.
I think that you might be able to, and I don't know. Again, I can't speak to what his mindset was. And keep in mind, he's been there for what? Not even a year now.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, it's relatively a short. You don't know. Maybe he hated.
Right.
Maybe he has hated Donald Sterling this whole time. You know, I don't know how many conversations they have. It doesn't sound like many because the story goes, hey, after it came out, what he said, hey, Doc, do you want to talk to Donald Sterling? He
Right.
obviously felt comfortable enough that he didn't even need to, broach it. The players felt comfortable enough to protest. Like, there's some people disappointed with the players that they didn't protest the game. I think that would have been unfair to themselves.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? I mean, they're playing for each other
Yes,
as much as
that's what
this.
I'm saying. Like, I think that I see where you're coming from.
Yes.
That you're right. But we've all worked for people.
Well,
I don't want to. But, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You know what?
They're all people you're like, oh, this guy, I mean, I think most people, like, it goes back to the old rich white guy syndrome.
Yeah.
You look at some of these people you work for through the years, you're like, God, I would never be friends with that guy. But it's tough to take that moral high ground. I mean, look, Doc Rivers probably could get hired by any NBA team.
And that's the thing, too. He could have his pick of most jobs. So when you say there's only 30 jobs in the world, he's not Randy Whitman.
No.
He's Doc Rivers, who's got an NBA championship.
Well, Randy Whitman may advance past Tom Thibodeau.
Yes.
Thank you very much. But by the way, it's too bad about this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make an NBA take here because we don't do enough NBA. You and
Okay.
I love the NBA playoffs so far.
They've been very good.
They've been fantastic. Anyone who thinks that the NBA has suffered since, say, the Seattle Sonics relocated just has their head up where.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, you said something about that.
But this is a great job, was my point with Rivers.
Right.
He wanted this job because for personal achievement. If, yes, in a crazy world, yes, the man paying him is a racist. And he probably knew that coming in. I can't imagine. Doc Rivers is sharp.
I'm just saying it's not a good look if he did and if he admits that he did.
But isn't, Charles Barkley said this, no one wins for the owner. To me, I mean, I always say, like, as someone who doesn't like the home team in any sport and never has and is kind of perplexed why people are so beholden to that mindset still in the year 2014, I don't begrudge you if you do. I just say the complaining about people that don't. In this era, internet, 24 hours, every team on TV. I just don't see the need. Like, I understand if it's the 50s and you can only follow one team, but not anymore.
I'm perplexed that you equate rooting for the team in the area that you grew up in and live in with the horse and buggy. That's an interesting analogy to me. I've never heard it made before.
Oh, I do. Like, to me, I think people who don't understand, I always say this to people who say, what? How can you not root for the home team? That's our team. I'm like, do you get numbers out of the phone book still, too? Are you still getting your box scores from the paper?
It depends. I mean, maybe you weren't socialized in it growing up, but, I mean, for those of us that did, and, like, our family was into the team.
I was, for me, I'm kind of teetering generationally.
Okay.
I think moving forward,
yeah,
I think it's going to happen less and less. You see that with people younger than us.
Uh-huh.
I think the whole root for the home team is becoming a mindset of the past.
Yeah.
It'll always be there.
Right.
But I don't view, to bring it back to this, these players, and the people of L.A., and that's not, L.A.'s not like Cleveland, so I don't think the people of L.A. would be hurt by this, and they may even understand it. I don't even think, like, when Blake Griffin Blake Griffin is not trying to win an NBA title for the city of L.A. He might say it to fire a crowd up at a pep rally or whatever.
Right.
But he isn't. He probably isn't even trying to win it for Doc Rivers.
Right.
He's trying to win it for him. It's all about a brand, and Doc Rivers was just trying to win it for him. He wasn't trying to win it for his boss. It would have been interesting, and we'll never know. Let's say the Clippers would have won the NBA title this year and this wouldn't have happened. Would Doc Rivers have embraced Donald Sterling on the court?
No.
I don't think he would have.
No.
I mean, it'd be one thing if, he was like hugging the guy and, hey, Don's my guy. I don't think it was like that. I think it was and maybe.
I just don't think you can have it both ways. I just think you either have your self-respect.
You can't, you're saying.
And you don't knowingly go to work for somebody who hates you.
So you're saying you have a problem because he took the money and wants to criticize him too.
Yeah.
The old have a cake and eat it too.
I
don't. I kind of admire it, to be honest with you. Hey, you're paying me. You're a racist asshole.
It's opportunistic. It's just very opportunistic.
I actually like Doc Rivers more than I did 5 minutes ago.
I will tell you this, though. I mean, and there's. I'm going to make this point in the classiest and most oblique way that I possibly can, and there are limits to how classy I can make this point, and for anybody that's followed us for a long time, they're going to know what I'm talking about. But as far as when you and I got to be friends, a lot of other folks that we know got to be friends with one another and work with one another. I would get questioned a lot of times by people who, friends and family and everything like that, of why I worked on so many shows other than my own, put in, guest appearances, did stuff, helped my friends with stuff at said institution. And I always said, it's not about the individual that you're speaking of. It's about my friends. It's all of them there. I don't view it as I'm doing this for such and such person that runs the place.
Yeah, it goes back to that. We all have bosses we don't like.
I love Sunday Night Submission as far as like being the fifth Beatle. That was the time of my life. That was just about my favorite show there. I loved it. I loved doing stuff. I would do stuff with some of the guys on the daytime shows when I would be on vacation because I would just be kind of in the office working on stuff anyways. Come out and make appearances and hang out. And I loved doing stuff, working with, being a part of things with them there. And it's hard because, again, when you get to it's the same things like with Donald Sterling. People, I agree with that. People will focus on ownership and think you're doing this for ownership when sometimes ownership is the last part of this that you're actually exerting yourself on behalf of. I hope I did that in as classy a way as humanly possible.
I'll say this. Anytime I went on a show, I did it for me.
Yeah. Well, even that.
That's what I'm saying. We're actually kind of saying the same thing, but
or unselfishly,
yeah.
but not unselfishly on behalf of ownership.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. I almost never did anything at said place unselfishly on behalf of ownership. It was either for myself or for my friends. And that's, again, people don't always understand that. So, but you and I have kind of lived this experience in a way that the players are dealing with. And that's where I'm kind of sympathetic to it, because it's about your team, it's about your bros, and
the players are probably doing. The players want to win for each other, probably,
yeah,
but it's still always going to be about yourself.
And the notion that you would have boycotted the game,
that
or
was
whatever.
silly. Mark Jackson said the fans. Of course, he doesn't want the fans there. It's a road game. I thought that was a little self-serving, Mark. Come on. Come on, Mark. I don't even think one of your canned Rudy speeches would have got the crowd to leave there.
Yeah, no.
But so anyway. To bring it full circle, who you got number one in the draft?
I'm going to say Jadeveon Clowney still.
So.
I mean,
are we done with Sterling?
He's the slam dunk Hall of Fame guy if he stays healthy.
Now let's do what ESPN tells us to do and talk football. But no, I do too. I mean, it's obviously that was a wild, hard turn, but I like doing hard turns.
Sure.
No, I do too. It's obviously a question of, again, value over need in the NFL. I mean, we talked about Houston in our division-by-division previews as a team that's likely to improve by a lot. I think I kind of went through some numbers that showed over the last 3 or 4 years, whatever it's been, the team that's picked first has been the most improved team every year in the league. Houston, I think, is going to follow that trend. To what degree, I think it won't be as much as we saw from Kansas City and Indianapolis the last 2 years, but it'll probably be more than Carolina did in Newton's rookie year. I'll say this, though. If Houston does pick Jadeveon Clowney, it's really hard. Unless if they seriously address the QB situation in round 2 with somebody that matters, it's going to be tough for me to pick them to go back to the playoffs with a quarterback situation that is Ryan Fitzhipster, your boy Case Keenum, and one of these rookies that's not Bortles, Johnny Football, David Carr, Teddy Bridgewater.
How about Jimmy Garoppolo, the guy that all the guys in jeggings and hipster glasses these days are all over him? I think he's going to be.
I think he's going to the Jaguars. They like him a lot. I've heard.
Well,
but he's around. He's around 2.
Or for Houston, they may want to seriously look at overpaying to get Kirk Cousins in there as well.
Yeah, I've heard. I heard some rumors about the Browns may still. I mean, obviously the Kyle Shanahan
that
links.
could happen. The thing with Clowney is people talk about this. Him on one side and J.J. Watt on the other side. And I'm thinking to myself, beyond that, it's a matter of picture a scenario where Brian Cushing is your third best pass rushing threat. I mean, that kind of tells you all you need to know right there. Think about that.
Yeah, no, and again, it's all about value over need. And it's interesting. I was trying to look something up here. I think it's quoting the abstract.
Looks like an old school cassette you're holding there.
It is. It's my phone. The whole thing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's
nice.
Kind of cool. You like that?
That
I
is,
get a lot of compliments on it.
That's a nice decorative thing, yes.
All right, hold on here. 1 second. There's a great quote I'm going to see if I'm going to not give them credit.
I was wondering how you were pulling this up on an AC/DC audio.
Yes. All right, here we go. Here's the thing with quarterbacks. If you miss on a high draft pick that's a quarterback, set your franchise back 3 years. You're going to win and you can hit on a quarterback. That's the catch-22 of the NFL draft. And so the thing with Houston is, Clowney clearly is better than any of the quarterbacks available.
Yeah.
But their ceiling is going to be limited by the quarterback position. I mean, Matt Schaub I was never a huge fan of, but at his peak was better than anything that Houston certainly has right now.
Good. Yeah.
And may have coming out of this draft.
I think we've talked about this before. In fairness, in retrospect, that injury that he had to his foot or leg or that killed him.
Yeah, I mean,
he's never been the same guy since. You look at him at the beginning of last year, and he was not the same quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think he had a ceiling to him. But Houston. It's funny that how short their window ended up being in the AFC South. I read something that there's been, I think, 13 years that we are under the current alignment, the 8 divisions, 4 teams. 2002 is when they did it. I think we're 13 seasons in. The Colts have made the playoffs in 12 of those years. The only year they didn't was the year between Manning and Luck.
Wow.
And they've won the division 11 times.
Well, when we're saying about the era of the Texans being done,
but it seemed like they were this team
where they're taking a knee for a year, and they may very well be
I don't know.
next
To
year.
me, with Andrew Luck, it's the Colts division to lose. As much as
I
think they've overperformed expectations his first 2 years, I think.
But they won't win the division every year.
No, they won't every year, but I think that as long as Andrew Luck's there, he's going to win more division titles than he doesn't.
Sure.
And Houston, you had this feeling like a couple of years ago, particularly, and again, it was the year that, no, it wasn't actually, it was Luck's rookie year that they were at their best, and you kind of had this feeling, okay, Houston's this franchise on the rise, they're going to be an AFC contender for years to come, and I really don't know if that's going to happen.
Still might be, in a bad conference. Again, what's
best case scenario, I think they're an 8-win team next year. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
They'll be on the AFC's so bad that they could make the playoffs again, but I think it would speak more to how poor the AFC is.
Oh, sure, but again, I mean, if Indy gets their 1 year overdue regression this year, 8 wins may be enough to take it.
It could be, but I think Indy can only, I learned my lesson last year. I think the Colts can only regress so much. This is a team that has outperformed its Pythagorean win expectation by a combined 6 wins the last 2 years. So they're due to start winning fewer games.
They are.
But I honestly can't see them doing worse than 9 next couple of years. That division's bad. I mean, Jacksonville's a team, a lot of people I think are going to be surprised when they pass on a quarterback at number 3. But you can't throw a quarterback on. If you're going to stink, just stink.
Yeah, but I mean,
is Blake Bortles going to lead Jacksonville to the playoffs this year?
Blake Bortles before silly season was a consensus top 5 pick, and now it's a thing of where
Blake Bortles before silly season, no one knew who the hell he was. Well, my stock watch on Blake Bortles too high right now, whereas Bridgewater too low.
Still too high? Yeah, I agree with you on Bridgewater too low, and because
I think it's evening out. So Bortles, to me, when people were banding him up the number 1 pick, I was sitting there being like, what are we doing?
Right.
Blake Bortles is going to be the number 1 pick all of a sudden? Before his bowl game, no one cared.
Well, I mean, he had a
and
really
all he
good
did
year.
was throw against a disinterested Baylor secondary that no-showed the game.
Well, that's true. As far as it goes with Bridgewater, and this is the point that I make to people because, again, and I have very good friends, and even in the media alliance, Ken Becks and Tom Denk, a couple of fellows that have really picked him apart. But again, I agree. I don't think he's completely exceptional in any one area, but I think he's really above average in a lot of different areas. Here's how I look at it, because everyone wants to go to the whole card of Brady, Manning, Rodgers. Well, I'll tell you what. I can fill one hand. I can name 5 Super Bowls, one by quarterbacks who are next level down. 2 from Eli Manning, 1 from Joe Flacco, 1 from Ben Roethlisberger. They are not with the immortals that I was talking about here a second ago. They're on the next level. Can Teddy Bridgewater be as good as those guys? I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, only if. Why did those guys win? First of all, in the case of Flacco, he was hot at the time he heated up, but he still had a lot of weapons around him.
Torrey Smith finally turned the corner to be a number 1.
That's why Blake Bortles is not going to carry the Jacksonville Jaguars to a playoff berth.
But picture
Andrew Luck. See, when people say because I hear some people, Randy trolling your boy, saying, you can't use the Luck Manning argument, otherwise you disqualify 95% of the quarterbacks. Well, those are the guys who can carry inferior teams. We always talk about with New England, and I think Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers fits in this, that those are cases where you're having a superior quarterback carrying an inferior roster.
Right.
That's not really the norm right now. It certainly wasn't with your defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks.
Although, again, I tend to put Russell Wilson in with because I think he is a Brady / Manning / whatever in the make. I think he's going to be at that level.
But not yet.
I think he's at the end of his career, if he stays healthy, I think it's more likely we talk about him with them than Eli, Flacco, and Roethlisberger. That's of being a guy who can elevate a team. You're right, he's not there yet at that point. Although, again, when you look at the wide receiving core, we do have to give him credit. He made them look better than they were. They're very unsensational.
He's very good. You have to be good, but only the top. Here's a group. I know a group you like, the top 2%. But going back to Donald Sterling, only those guys can carry your inferior rosters. That's why with the Browns, I don't think should the Browns go quarterback. I don't think they should.
Here's the thing, though.
And number 4, 26, they should go quarterback, not number 4, because if you have a substandard roster, no quarterback save for the Luck Manning tier is going to elevate you to where you want to be.
I'm not opposed to Bortles at 4. I'm not.
I kind of am.
Here's what I'd rather, though. What I'd rather is Watkins at 4, and I don't wait for Bridgewater at 26 because it only takes
I think he's
going to
fall there. I think he'll fall there.
In the late teens, I would trade up because here's the thing. Here we're talking about that Eli, Flacco, Roethlisberger winning Super Bowls. Okay, if you're giving Teddy Bridgewater, Josh Gordon, probably the best receiver in the league, not named Megatron right now, and Sammy Watkins, and Jordan Cameron, poor man's Jimmy Graham. I mean, can you really say that you're much better suited than that? Ben Tate at running back, who is I don't
like trading up. Unless if it's for a specific... I mean, I guess
that
is a
picks,
specific need.
Kyle.
They
have
do.
A lot of picks.
I don't overdo it, though, because
No.
I really think you can get Bridgewater at 26.
Well, if you get Bridgewater, and I mean, I said it's
the Browns' dream...
I will run down the street naked if they get Bridgewater and
Watkins. I told this to noted Cleveland Browns honk Nick Flasher, my good friend, and maybe someday yours.
Okay.
But the Browns' dream draft scenario is this. Watkins at 4, Bridgewater 26, cornerback early second round.
That'd be awesome.
That would be hitting the lottery.
Yeah. That would be tremendous.
That would be hitting
I would
what do you
love
think
to see
St.
that.
Louis is doing at number 2? But like I said, I think that's so important.
Everybody wants to know.
Assume they don't trade down.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to because I think a lot of the dance partners, originally there was that thing when people were thinking Houston was going to take a quarterback, a lot of people linked them in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta would trade up then to get Clowney, and St. Louis would just move back to take one of the tackles. There's a chance if St. Louis trades far back enough, they could lose out on a lot of their top prospects. I think they stay at number 2.
I think they probably do also.
And I'm not sure which way they go, though. If I'm them, I would take Sammy Watkins at number 2.
See, here's the thing, though. I think it'll be Greg Robinson. I'll tell you why it won't be Watkins in my estimation. Because it probably should be. But here's why it won't be, is my guess. Because of the politics of admitting that what I said at the time last year, that Tavon Austin was a horrific reach. He's not an every down impact player.
You and I have debated Tavon Austin, and I believe
never will be.
Especially with that unimaginative Jeff Fisher running things.
Well, maybe all the more reason for that. Again, if you have a coach who can't take advantage of
that's part of the reasons why I don't think they may take. Because to me, if you have here they have another problem too.
You can't use politically. You can't use consecutive top 10 picks on a wide receiver. You just can't.
Well, the Detroit Lions did. Now, of course, that didn't work out too well, but they did it.
How's general manager Matt Millen doing these days?
I don't know. He's offered a fine defense of Joe Paterno on ESPN once. I don't. But
why not? Because he Sandusky'd all those drafts for the Lions.
That is unborn. But then again, it doesn't really matter what you do if you're St. Louis. You know why?
Why?
Because you got Chief Checkdown, Sam Bradford, your boy.
We differ on that. I think
he stinks.
I think he can do a good job with the right weapons.
I would rather have Tavon Austin on my team than Sam Bradford any day of the week.
Wow.
And twice on Sunday, which is important because they usually play the games on Sunday.
Well, I mean, look, Tavon Austin is nothing more than an updated version of trunk candidate in that offense because you got to get him the ball.
That is offensive and just wrong.
Well, I mean, how much impact did he ever have for the team? Fast guy, but getting him the ball was
Tavon Austin had 2 great games. And I don't know the last time you looked at your NFL schedule. They only play 16.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
he single-handedly annihilated Indianapolis in a game.
There
aren't many players that can do that.
He's an amazing player, 1/8 of the time in the league. I'm not quite sure you're building the case you think
he
you
was
are
a
there,
rookie that wasn't used properly, and still, in spite of his 1940s coaching staff,
a guy who falls somewhere on the stature scale between Hornswoggle and Ice Cube McNeil, and you're telling me he's a consistent every down player.
If you know how to use him. Do you know who would use Tavon Austin right?
Who?
A nice progressive mind like Chip Kelly. Let's tip your cap. I guarantee you if the Eagles had Tavon Austin, oh my God, you couldn't stop this guy.
Look.
Smart people know how to use Tavon Austin.
I'll admit.
3 yards in a cloud of dust idiots don't know how to use Tavon Austin.
I'll admit, I believed that Deshaun Jackson before last year was never going to be an impact player on that level. And by the way, never will be again now that he's left Philadelphia. Good luck replicating that in Washington. But it's one of these things where it's the exception to the rule. You can't be a guy that gets muscled around in today's NFL and be a guy.
Get him out in space. Look, I agree that there's
a tremendous panacea, but how do you do that? Down in and down out.
I don't know. I'm not an offensive coordinator. I don't know, but I imagine that the 30 people who are paid to be an offensive coordinator, some of them should know how to do that.
Evidently, you're saying they should rehire my guy Mike Martz there in St. Louis.
Yes. I mean, he had his faults. I mean, certainly they'd probably
there was a progressive thinker.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's progressive. He was a little reckless, I think.
Yeah.
He's a little reckless. Hey, let's throw the ball 60 times. That's a little too much. But
well, I mean, maybe his politics were progressive then.
I don't know. But No, I think St. Louis is going to set the tone for about the next 8 picks after that. You're going to know once. That's why I kind of don't like mock drafts that much. But I'll tell you this, and if we're talking during the draft, which I hope we are, you'll see me jump in. After those top 2 picks, I feel I'll be very comfortable how to call 3 through right away.
It all depends because you're right. There always is somebody there in the top 10, usually somewhere in the ballpark of like 5 or 6, where they make a pick, and everyone's like, okay, tear up your mock drafts, everybody. And you're saying it could happen at 2 with St. Louis, and I would agree with
I don't
you.
think it's going to be tear up because St. Louis, again, if assuming Houston takes Clowney, St. Louis's pick comes down to 3 players, in my opinion. Greg Robinson, who I've seen mocked a lot, but I've also read is the third of these 3 choices for them, even though he fills a need.
Right.
Khalil Mack, who they apparently really like, but he doesn't really fill a need.
Okay.
And then Watkins. It's going to be one of those 3 guys they take.
They really like, partially because of the bloodlines with Fisher, they really like Matthews.
They say that, but I heard they don't like taking Right, if I was St. Louis and only Clowney was off the board, I would take Sammy Watkins.
This is the thing, too, about if the Browns were to take Robinson or Matthews. This is a concern that I have.
Okay, I wanted to get to that. Because Jacksonville will take Watkins or Mack.
Yeah, probably.
In my opinion, whoever... Well, let's say
and Watkins and Blackman. Woo, that would be tremendous.
Well, I mean, Justin Blackman may have his issues staying on the field, but
same with Josh Gordon. So Sammy Watkins may have to shoulder more of the burden, regardless of where he goes.
Sammy Watkins, in addition to being our top draft pick, you also have to beat up every weed dealer in the area. But here's my question for you with the Browns. Let's say the top 3 in some order is Clowney, Mack, and Watkins. Those are the 3 players off the board. Who would you take it for? Would you go quarterback? I would take Greg Robinson.
I think I'd rather have Bortles than Robinson. I think
the Browns' offensive line stinks. They have 2 guys who are very good, but the other 3 are, what did we talk about, below replacement level.
But here's the thing, too, about
you can get the quarterback at 26.
About going for tackle instead of guard, though. And this is the whole thing about this, that you may say that this is much ado about nothing, but this is not a point that I've seen anywhere else, and this is something I would worry about with them. When you talk about the iconic players with the franchise, I mean, Joe Thomas is one of the first guys you look at. He's not too far away. I mean, this is a guy already here pushing the 30s. At a certain point in time, that transition has to happen. Is it 2016, 2017?
Yes.
Joe Thomas goes to right tackle. How is that going to go? How do you, in that moment, say, even when it is the right time, logically,
you tell them you're moving.
That's something that could split a locker room. I'm telling you, because it's a huge demotion. You've been our franchise left tackle.
It's not going to be right
Hall of
away.
Fame credentials for a decade. But,
my God, let's play some AFC North football with 3 guys, big uglies up front.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think you would. You're saying if the Browns pick Greg Robinson, it would offend Joe Thomas?
No. But I'm saying it sets up a scenario in 3 years that could very well offend Joe Thomas, because there will come a point in time when Greg Robinson or Jake Matthews is so dominant at right tackle that it's clear you have to make that move.
Then Joe Thomas is an idiot and a fool then if he can't accept that. Yeah. And so's anyone else who doesn't.
He's got a lot of pride. Top players have a lot of pride.
Well, I mean, you got to know to move over. I mean, if they're winning, then he shouldn't care. And if they're not, then go fishing, pal.
Well, yeah, easy for us to say, but we're not the ones cashing the left tackle paychecks here.
Yes. Who is the team that you think should trade up to address an obvious need?
Yeah, Atlanta's been linked to a lot of different things here. I mean, as horrid as their defense was last year,
I think
Clowney,
that, you know what?
That makes sense.
It does. I think they have too many holes to be trading up Atlanta.
And they might.
I am not as high on Atlanta as maybe you think. Then again, I'm never as high on Atlanta as you are.
I don't think you're very high on Atlanta.
But, no, look, they're going to have an obvious bounce back year. And I think, I said on the NFC South podcast that we did to look forward that, I can see 8-8 next year.
Well,
a bounce back. But they stink on both lines. I think they need to stay at 6 and take whatever tackles left.
Yeah.
And then I've heard some people saying D Ford may be available, the guy from Auburn in round 2.
Yeah.
Get him, and then because they need to address both sides of the line.
Here's the thing, though, and I agree with you on that. I agree that they have a number of holes and that are remaining. But we get to the philosophy here of Clowney has been proclaimed, and most people agree with this in terms of the skill set, but a once-in-a-generation edge pass rusher, somewhat akin to the billing that Julius Peppers got when he came out of college. And the thing of it is, if he lives up to the billing, if he is that kind of guy that in any given year can threaten to have 20 or 20-plus sacks, then it becomes a situation where how much better does that make your cornerbacks because of the increased pass rush?
Yes.
How much better does it make the team in terms of the ripple effects on the run defense as well? Sure. And everything like that to help the offense by Yeah, again,
you're not giving him as many
sure.
points. Yeah.
I mean,
no, that's true.
He's maybe the biggest ripple effect player in this draft.
That's a good point, and I can see that. I don't know if they have the assets. I don't know if people, and again, now they're being linked. Now that Houston is being linked to Clowney at number 1, people are trying to say, "Oh, Atlanta may trade up to number 1." I don't know. I don't know if they have the necessary assets to do that. And if Houston traded back to 6, I mean, Bortles, I think, is their guy at quarterback that they would have number 1 on the board. He may not be there at 6. These teams that are trading back, I don't think Houston or St. Louis trade back because they will run the danger of trading too far back. I could see this. That Houston picks Clowney, and if Bortles is still on the board at 6, Atlanta takes him, and then they trade. You know what the idea? I could see a trade after the fact. I do not see Houston preemptively trading the pick.
Wouldn't that be an irony if teams like Atlanta were struggling to trade up because teams like Houston didn't want to go too far back? Because there have been a lot of scenarios in the past couple of years where teams would have liked to have traded back, but couldn't find a dance partner because nobody thought it was worth moving up, giving up assets. Why would we want to move up 6 spots to get this guy? These guys are fairly interchangeable. But to go absolutely full circle on a point you made before that actually slipped my mind until right now, this is something I wanted to address. When you were talking about the notion of mock drafts and how can you proclaim winners and losers right afterwards, I'll give you an example from when I think it would have been, was this 06, 07, 08, whatever year it was at the station. I don't think this is the year that Jason and I, back at the old Sports Talk Network days, did the 10-hour draft show when the draft was on a Saturday. One of those years is the year Dante Whitner came out. And we ridiculed.
Sorry, you mean Dante.
Yeah, thank you. We ridiculed Marv Levy for that pick, taking him at 8 when everyone else had him going like somewhere in the 20s.
This was 07. I was there.
07. Because you cannot ignore market value. If the rest of the world has the guy in the 20s, you can't take him at 8. You trade back some spots and take him.
I agree that you could do that, but I mean, it's the problem I have here. Here's a real hipster move right here. With when people, this websites like Pitchfork.com write an album's epitaph 2 days after it's been released. They listen to it one time through. Oh, this is our definitive opinion on this album.
But the thing of it is that
I agree. You can say, maybe it was a little too high. But at the end of the day, let's say, and again, maybe that pick still is looked at as too high. But there are guys who, in retrospect, you're like, oh, well, okay, maybe it was a little high, but it certainly worked out.
Well, and this is where, and again, where I get a reputation for extreme opinions because I've been questioned.
Because you like to embrace debate.
Yeah, well, I have very, very strong, stubborn opinions that I stick to. And, again, being asked the question of, well, what if Dante Whitner turned out to be the second coming of Ronnie Lott? Would it still be a reach? Which I say, yes.
Oh,
absolutely,
you're so wrong.
Because you could have the second coming of Ronnie Lott and more draft picks by trading back to even 13 or 14.
Yeah, but when those guys have
still
been
be
anything, stop it.
No,
you're wrong.
You can always get these assets are precious, Kyle
You're
Ross.
wrong.
You cannot buck
You're
the market
wrong.
to that degree.
I'll tell you what team is going to trade down. You want to talk about acquiring assets? What team should trade down? The Oakland Raiders.
Oh, sure.
Because they stink.
But they won't. Instead, they'll reach for somebody there in classic.
I don't think they will. I think here's a scenario I envision.
They're being linked to Derek Carr at 5, of all things.
Well, and here's what. I think if top 4 picks go, as I think they will, some order, Clowney, Mack, Robinson, Watkins. Blake Bortles is still out there at 5. Minnesota's a team that desperately wants to trade up.
Yep.
They have a clear need at quarterback.
They do.
I think you could see Minnesota and Oakland. Usually you see a lot of non-conference trades in the opening round. You don't want to help a team that you could be competing against for a playoff spot. Minnesota and Oakland, I think, you heard it here first, could flip-flop 5 and 8. Minnesota trade-ups up to get Bortles.
Yeah.
Oakland, they just need a lot of picks. They stink. On paper, for a second straight year, they're the worst team.
Doing a solid for the Vikings. I mean, that's the least that Mark Davis could do. I mean, again, Fred Biletnikoff was using Stickum and cheating in Super Bowl 11. So that's the least they could do all these years later, Kyle Ross.
Who cares? Here's a team I'm high on. I think.
Who?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay.
I know that we've talked in the past.
They've been active in
teams that win the offseason never win the regular season.
Especially in MLB the last couple of years.
Yes. But they're going to dial up College Station, Texas, one way or another for that 7 pick. Either Johnny Manziel or Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is a clear need because they have no number 2 receiver opposite Vincent Jackson. And I think
to get the second coming of Vincent Jackson.
Yeah, but I think that even with Josh Tears of McCown, who is, I think destined to be one of the better backups in the league. Yeah. Yes.
Not exactly Hartley, I like Dykes, but it's not bad.
Stop it. But I think with a returning Doug Martin, Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, and a defense that will be much better under Lovie Smith.
Right.
You can win with that team. Tampa Bay is a team, I don't remember, I certainly said that they would be much better this year than last year because it's addition by subtraction, get rid of Schiano.
Well,
but that's a team that right now, depending on how this draft goes and what they do at that number 7 pick, that's a team that can win 9 games, maybe 10, threaten to make the playoffs.
Possibly. You remember going into last season, we said it's when we were doing our divisional previews. We had a harder time getting a grasp on them than almost any other team in the NFC.
They were my biggest wild card in the NFC. I said it. I said they had the biggest range that they could fall in of any team.
Because we questioned their coaching, as we were right to do, but they have a lot of players already in place.
They were an unlucky team. They started unlucky. Remember that week 1?
Right.
It was one of those things.
They lost every close game.
They lost every close game in week 1. It was just that bad tone setter.
Yeah.
Remember who's the linebacker? Levante David.
Yeah.
He did something really stupid.
Yeah.
I think it was a late hit on the quarterback, and it allowed the Jets to get in field goal range, and they won it.
It was the second coming into the Dwayne Rudd helmet.
Yes, that set a negative tone all year. So Tampa Bay is going to be much improved.
Yeah, they are. And the thing of it is, too, again, Greg Schiano, the poor man's Eric Mangini, to be sure. But I will tell you this. Just because he said it doesn't mean it's untrue. I do believe that Mike Glennon has some upside. I think we are quick to count him out at
He was
quarterback.
improving last year. I think, Johnny Manziel would be an interesting pick because I don't think it would really fit a need.
Yeah.
But the only other trade that I'm going to try to guess.
Okay.
Green Bay, and I know it goes against what I said about non-conference trades.
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay could move up maybe to number 12. The Giants are a team that have some needs, but the way I see most mock drafts working out and the way I kind of see the board falling, they may not have that, okay, we have to pick this guy right now thing, and I've heard that they might want to trade back. Green Bay really needs a safety, and if they could jump in front of a division rival, Chicago, who also needs a safety, I would recommend doing that. Ted Thompson is not a guy who likes to trade up a lot, but this might be a time when to move up, get Clinton Dix, or I can't imagine Calvin Pryor would be off the board at number 12 already.
No, I don't think so.
But if Dix is, they may want to move up and take Pryor. So
I do know that our chief draft maven at FDH, our senior editor Jason Jones, has said that merely pronouncing the name Clinton Dix in the vicinity of his wife causes her to go into spastic giggles.
Yes, that is. It is a I think there's going to be a lot of people that don't know his name when he's announced. And people are like, there's going to be a lot of awful jokes.
Well,
but none more so than what Chris Berman will probably say. But
probably. All I can tell you is this: as we start to bring this all the way around, I have already decided what my next big linguistic thing is going to be here out of this draft, and I'm going to use this a lot of times in conversation. That after looking through this year's top draft prospects, I settled on this one almost immediately here. I will be using as one of my catchphrases whenever somebody goes to put themselves over a little bit too much for something. Ironic for me to say, right?
Yes.
When I catch somebody else doing it, I'm going to be like, hey, not so fast there, Ego Ferguson. That's what I'm going to be using.
Good Lord. Well, there were subjects we didn't even get to on this potpourri.
Well, future things to come here. I know we were going to be talking potentially some wrestling, but we're going to be doing that in a little bit of that would have been great for a potpourri thing anyways, because we got some stuff we need to get to with Mania 30, a little bit of a breakdown.
Yeah.
We actually,
I think we gave people enough. We gave people a year's worth of babble here.
We did. I know there's a lot of people in between football season are like, I wish we could get more of Kyle Ross. You got damn near an hour and a half right here, people. I mean, it's not enough for you. I understand it. I feel you. I love doing the segments with him, but it's a pretty good down payment, Kyle Ross.
Yes.
Very
and we'll
good.
have to do it again. There is no off season with Kyle Ross.
There is no off season, and like we said before, folks, coming soon. Kyle may be putting his own shingle out there, and I look to be a part of that as well. So we'll be talking about that in the days, months, weeks, years, and decades to come in the FDH Lounge.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the periodic table of elements.